Good afternoon, everyone. It's Lauren Hawkins here once again from ThreePoint Capital, and what's turned out to be an annual get-together. I'm today with the team from Lawrenson Walker. For everybody that's not familiar with this amazing appraisal firm located in BC and Alberta, I'll turn it over to you guys. Maybe give yourself a little intro, and then we'll get started.
Who wants to go first? I'll start. I'm Lee Walker. I'm the president of Lawrenson Walker. And as Loren mentioned, we've been operating in BC, Alberta for quite some time. And we do look forward to getting together with you, Loren, every year to sort of touch base. We like to hear from our lending partners and our broker partners as much as you'd like to hear from us. So we believe that since we built our business around the broker space, it's really important for us to have this open communication back and forth, timely topics, conversation, because it helps us, maintain the top of our game, so that when things do get busy, we're there for you. So thank you for that. I'll turn it over to Derek or Chantel.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren, for having us over again. It's always a pleasure to have this conversation and let you fill you guys in on what's going on in the appraisal business. I'm Derek Funk. I'm the managing partner for our Okanagan firm here in Kelowna. We've been coming up to our 5th year up here. So yeah, it's been great up here. So.
And I'm Chantal Haugard. I'm the managing partner in Alberta. And yeah, we're approaching our 5th year in Alberta as well.
That's great. I think this is year 3 now for us, and it's the most requested interview I get. So obviously we're doing things right, and it's always, like I said, it's always a great time, regardless of what's going on, to sit down with industry partners like yourselves and have a chat and see what's going on and provide some great insight to our broker partners. So I thought where we'd sort of start today would be just a recap of what last year looked like for you guys in your regions that you're in. I mean, obviously big changes throughout the year, and just want to see how that affected the rest of your year, because it was about this time last year where we got together.
I think we'll save the best for last, and that means Chantel. So I'll go first. And I'll say that, one thing that we've learned in our business is that, and we've known this to a certain degree, but this has really hit home, is how much our business is affected by interest rates. We're an appraisal firm that does strictly 99% mortgage appraisals. And so we are affected just like you're affected as well. But to the degree of how it affects us has been a real big eye-opener for us. And so Lawrenson Walker, we've been fortunate. Lawrenson Walker, Vancouver and Victoria, we've been down significantly, but not as bad as some stories I've heard across the country. But it has been a test of patience, certainly for the last, during this downturn. And I talked to our team of appraisers, and we are ready for downturns. We go up and we go down. We've seen this before. Yeah. However, this one is prolonged. So their appraisers can seem to sort of get through a year of a downturn, but when it gets into a year and a half, things start to fall apart. And I think there's a lot of frustration, a lot of concern within the real estate and certainly the appraisal community as well. But I think that we are all optimistic about when the rates change, so will our good fortunes. Derek?
Yeah, similar story here in Kelowna. I think that was the second worst downturn I've seen since I've been in this business. The previous one was 2008. So, I mean, we got through it, but it's been such a roller coaster when prices skyrocketed throughout 2022 and peaking in the spring there. And just watching this real estate market start to just come to pretty much a complete halt. And with these skyrocketing interest rates, like Lee said, it's our business is very affected by interest rates. So I think the worst is over, actually. Up here, I'm seeing a lot of more positivity in the market. It's very seasonal up here in the Okanagan, like Lauren. When the winter hits, the market really just dies right down. So this was a double whammy of interest rates, the forest fires, the seasonal market. So I do think we're getting out of it now. We had one of our busiest days last last week of the whole year in the Okanagan. So definitely more promising things to come, I think, in the market up here.
On a
When,
positive note,
what's that?
Chantal, great.
Yeah, so Calgary, we're in Calgary and Edmonton. Now, both of those markets are a little bit different. So I'm going to specify specifically for Calgary for 2023. Appraisal wise, we were busy. We didn't experience the same decrease in volume for appraisals that we did in the other markets. And I think this is directly reflected from what is going on in the Calgary market, which I think we're going to touch on later. But in 2023, we did see an increase in the market in prices, 10% in detached, 20% in condos and townhouses in the affordable market. You know, people are kind of seeing what's going on, so it's not stopping them from making real estate decisions.
Yeah.
If they want a home to own a property in Calgary. So 2023 was consistent. So in terms of that, it's been, you know, very positive for my business. And then Edmonton hasn't seen quite the same market increase that Calgary has. However, they are projected to maybe have a boom coming up in the following years. As Calgary maybe gets unaffordable for some people, there's going to be a price that I think that will push migration to Edmonton. So that'll be interesting to watch. I'm excited for that market. I do hope that they see that. But yeah, positive things.
So Edmonton was more of a flat with maybe a little bit of a blip here or there, but nothing substantial of an increase like Calgary did.
Correct.
Yeah, for us last year, we saw a big boom in Alberta business. A lot of clients that we saw applications for were coming from the east. You know, affordability in Ontario or style or lifestyle just wasn't attractive to these people anymore. So they were either moving and then going to figure out employment, or they already had employment lined up and moving out that way. And then a few that were kind of gearing up for the move, buying a rental property to hold for the next couple of years until they can get all their ducks in a row and make the move out west. So definitely seen it, and that really hasn't slowed down much. I mean, definitely an uptick in applications coming in for Alberta this year. So which is a great thing to see.
Yeah, and I think I predicted end of last year. I don't see it slowing down for Calgary specifically.
Yeah.
I don't think we're at the peak of the threshold where people are not going to migrate from east or from BC. I think, yeah, we have a ways to go, and we've seen it since January. Month over month, we've increased 2% on price levels alone. And if that continues through the year, that's another significant increase. So over the last 3 years, Calgary market has really seen a big improvement.
It's nice for some of the real estate sun to be shining on Calgary for a change, instead of it always being on in BC.
Yeah.
Calgary's turn.
Yeah, exactly. Are you seeing as some of the prices closer to the city core, are you seeing some of the outlying communities grow as well?
Yeah, for sure. Communities, I don't know if you're referring to like the Okotoks and the Airdrie, they're actual.
Yeah, that or going out to sort of Cochrane area and whatnot versus going north, right? It's people that still want to stay relatively.
We have a draw to inner city in Calgary for sure.
Yeah.
Price levels are higher, but that's not the area that we're seeing the biggest increase. It's definitely the suburban areas that those increases are higher. That seems to be where people want to put their families, have that white picket fence type detached home if that's what they're looking for. So those are the areas that in detached market, I would say, is increased the most. But condos and townhomes, inner city, you know, a lot are just located there. So seeing 20% increase in that market is amazing, because it's been a really unfortunate 10 years for condos in Calgary. They hadn't moved in price, they've dropped, they've gone up just a little bit. So people are starting to even just see what they paid 10 years ago back, what they could cash out for it now.
Yeah, I was out in Edmonton a couple weeks ago, and then we came back coming driving home through Calgary, and we were downtown and came through and hit the new connector from the, I guess, the South Perimeter Road coming through the hill that they cut out there, and I got lost of where I was, and all of a sudden I had the Olympic
Yeah,
Park
yeah, yeah.
beside me.
I
I'm
know
like,
exactly
oh,
what you're
this is
talking
where
about.
we are. Like, wow, like that cut off mass amount of
20 minutes. Yeah.
oh,
From a
it was
45-minute drive. Yeah, there's been some big infrastructure changes to Calgary. Now we have a ring road that goes around the entire city.
yeah,
For appraisers, it's been amazing because now something isn't so far away
exactly.
from before. But yeah,
And likely people that want to move out for more
right.
affordability, and they're still working downtown. I mean, it really improves their commute, so that, you know, they might be more likely to be in the office a little bit more than working from a remote home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing people might not understand if you're not from Calgary, the commute itself, it is a far distance. However, we just don't have the traffic problems that a lot of the busy cities do. So, you know, people aren't not going to move to the suburbs if they work downtown.
Yeah.
So
how has that been in Lower Mainland, Lee?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, certainly a drawback to living in the Lower Mainland anywhere is traffic and time takes to get around.
Exactly.
And so the sounds like the infrastructure sun is shining on Calgary even more. So
Yeah.
but I think in terms of, you know, how it affects the Lower Mainland, the Lower Mainland itself is, you know, we're poised for a pretty busy spring, I think. People are coming out of the woodwork. I take a look at one of the early indicators, or like the leading indicators of how busy things are, is certainly talking to realtors and seeing how busy they are, but also taking a look at how many open houses, and particularly how many shoes are at the door at the open house. You can walk by when you're walking down the street and you can look over and you can see the shoes. That to me tells me that we're in for a busy spring. So
that's an awesome segment into that next piece. I just want to get your take on what the spring market's going to look like. I mean, for us this year, we've already seen correction in reports. And I think Derek and you and I spoke briefly about this a couple of weeks ago. We're starting to see, you know, markets or reporting coming in a little less than what people are buying properties for, just based on location. So that's definitely going to play a factor coming in, as definitely the Western prices sort of adjust, you know, going forward into the new year. We're seeing that in Ontario as well. Appraisals coming back under purchase.
so are these pre-sale contracts?
No, not 100% of them. No, not at all.
Really?
No, not at all.
And so what would be an example of one where, you know, appraisals coming in below purchase price if it's a current transaction? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. You know, whether or not it was, you know, a bit of a bidding war, or, you know, multiples, and somebody just wanted a little bit more. I mean, I'm not saying substantial undervalue, but, you know, $45,000 is still enough to skew a deal and push it into scenario where, you know, somebody's now having to come to a private, right?
So can I just add a point there with respect to coming in below purchase price? Because this is something that came up recently when I was talking to some of our appraisers. So when we see up moving markets, and I think we're about to see a quick up moving market when demand is going to outstrip supply for a short term. And then when we see that, prices rise very quickly and then they stabilize. So in that period where they're rising very quickly, appraisals are difficult to reach the value because the comparables are outdated by the time they're published. And so, you know, an appraiser has to look behind them to get the data to appraise something. When the market is moving forward, there's that gap. And so sometimes it's hard. But I'll say this, that some appraisers, many appraisers, rely 100% on comparables. And they'll say, the comparables don't show that it's going to reach this value, so therefore I cannot give you this value.
Yeah.
I want to clarify and perhaps disagree with that point a little bit, is that appraisers, when they are determining what the value is, one of the tools they use is comparables. It's not the only tool.
Right.
So that's where they need to pull, you know, put on their appraiser, reasonable appraiser hat and really look at the deal, look at the transaction and say, is this reasonable? Will it achieve the sale price? And it's not only comparables. It's looking at market forces, supply and demand, what's available in the market, things like that. And so it takes a little longer. It's a little bit more difficult to appraise a property in this market. But I think in those cases where you might get a response that says, from an appraiser that says we can't do this because of the comparables don't meet it. I think that sometimes they just need to go back to the drawing board and really think about things before they make that statement.
Yeah.
And the test that we put ourselves through as appraisers and in our office anyways, we say, if this property were to go back on the market tomorrow, is it reasonable that it would achieve the same purchase price? And if the answer is no, then you're going to come in below the purchase price today. But if the answer is yes, of course it's going to get that same price today and tomorrow and probably in the next little while, then that is representative of market value. And then you as an appraiser got to dig harder, make a case for that purchase price.
We do that a lot here in Kelowna because there's always just not enough sales and everything is so different up here, whether it comes to the view or the style of the home, who built the home, everything, the location. There's no cookie cutter homes up here, right? So, and we just Loren, there's just limited sales up here. So a lot of the times we have to just dig deeper and keep a close eye on the market, what's going on. And like Lee said, be able to justify the price without having enough, not a lot of data really, but.
And so Derek and I both come from real estate sales backgrounds as well. So we know, I'll just call it the deal. And so we know how to read contracts. We know what happens in multiple offer situations, and sometimes what happens in those situations, how can push the price up, but sometimes that price is definitely way overvalued. Sometimes it's not. But it's good to be able to reference, and Derek and I have conversations about this quite a bit with respect to the things that we recall the things that we pull from our real estate sales background and bring into the appraisal. The appraisal space is interesting for sure.
Yeah. Are you seeing much of that in Alberta, Chantal?
We are seeing a bit, there are multiple offer situations and people are offering over the list price, but kind of exactly what Lee says, with limited inventory, we take the approach of, well, where else are they going to go? What's the next property? Those 20 people that put a bid on are going to now put a more aggressive bid on the next property. And it seems to be pretty short-lived window because, once that sale or that property sells, then, okay, now we have a comparable that is supporting a higher market. But yeah, definitely it is a struggle to appraise in an upticking market. But now that we're kind of used to that because we've been seeing that for a few years here.
And when things ramp up really fast is where there's 12 people putting offers on one house. One party gets it. Now there's still 11 even more aggressive people now going after the same house, the next one when it comes up. So that gets bid up even faster than it would normally. And then you've got 10 people who are really aggressive for the next one. And then maybe, as we approach this deeper into the spring, now 5 people get added on top of that.
Well, and especially if everybody's looking at a certain location and a certain type of house, like you said, they're just going to go from house to house, and it's just going to get more and more aggressive because they don't want to be in that realm of losing out again. So taking all this into consideration, are there specific things that brokers should be looking at on appraisal reports going into a potentially, a little bit hotter spring market when they're reviewing the report? Are there specific areas in the report they should be paying attention to before they're passing that report on to their lender partner? For one thing, if I'm ever helping out underwriting and kind of having a boo at appraisals, for me, it's always being that the adjustments. See how high those adjustments had to do to hit a certain number. So are there parts on the reports they should be more aware of this year than maybe previous years?
Do you want me to start with that? I know Chantal just did a presentation on this, so maybe I'll let you go first on that.
I mean, specific to this year, when we are seeing an increasing market, in Calgary. This might probably is going to be the case in the other markets as well once we start to see it increasing, is a time adjustment. Did that appraiser make an appropriate time adjustment? Because a month ago, that would have, I'm assuming it would have sold lower. And so just making sure that your appraiser is on top of what's going on in the market, because that can be that extra 25, 45,000 that you need to make that deal work. Or, I mean, that is just giving it the fair market value in the current situation. So I think in specific to an increasing market, that's really important. Another really important thing to look at is the photos, and know that there's going to be no issue before you send it over to the underwriter, or at least be aware of what the issues are. We're surprised how many brokers aren't reading the reports or looking at them. The issues come up when it gets to ThreePoint, and then sometimes it's just an issue that there's nothing we can do or talk to them about. So, or the file's going to be dead. The appraiser should call the broker to let them know if there is something major, but if that's not the case, they should be doing a read through for sure.
Yeah.
My mantra is read the bloody report. I want brokers to read the report, familiarize yourself. You know, you've been hammered so much with KYC.
Yeah.
Know your client, know your client. KYP, know your property. Know everything about that property, and you don't want to be told something. You don't want to be surprised by the lender or the underwriter coming back to you and telling you about something about the property that you didn't know. It's not just the number on the appraisal report. There's so many other things in an appraisal that is important. The one thing that you said, what do we key in on? I think listing history is a really good thing that we at Lawrenson Walker rely on heavily. So the Appraisal Institute requires that the appraiser list 3 years of listing history. Our policy is to list 5 years of listing history. And that chronologically tells the story of what's gone on with that property. And a lot of things come to light when you read that. For me, it's really it's the bedrock of what I look at when I'm reviewing a report. I look at the pictures first, like Chantel says, and I go straight to the listing history and say, what am I dealing with here? But you know, I don't want to give any cheat sheets to reading an appraisal report. I do think that if you are working with an appraiser that you trust and you rely on, that the appraiser is going to pick up the phone and call you about any surprises in the report, but still do please read the report.
Yeah. I mean, I can vouch, even my broker days, you know, likes you guys, you know, hey, Loren, this is not going to come. Like, I don't want to, I just looked at a couple of things before I hit the road to go over the property. It's not going to come out. And that's a big key part for brokers, lenders to have the relationships like we do with you guys, to kind of give us a heads up so we can kind of, you know, end something before it begins, and makes a big difference. And to your point on reading, I mean, we've seen, you know, over the years, reports come in, we got kind of go through it, and all of a sudden we're like pulling things out. It's like phoning the broker, did you read this? Like, no, we just sent it through. I'm like, well, really, it's part of your due diligence in knowing your client and knowing our requirements to kind of read the report. It's not a difficult thing to do. And if you're not maybe familiar, then reach out to, you know, an appraiser that, you know, take them for coffee or lunch and kind of go through and ask some questions on, like we just said here, key ideas of what to look for in a report, so you have a better understanding of what you're presenting to a lender partner, right? So, but so there's a couple things. Typically going into this market, you know, what piece of advice could you give our broker partners out there as far as setting up expectations with their client with regards to lead time to ordering appraisals? Obviously, we all like, you know, everything as far out as possible. Sort of what's your ideal expectation of receiving a report for a purchase, receiving a report for a refinance, you know, and what would be sort of that cutoff where it's too late to get involved in run a report?
We tell our clients to, you know, order it as fast as you can, obviously. But we can get things done in as short as 24 hours if we need to. It's just prioritizing the deals that we have in the pipe.
Correct.
But right now, I would say that we are approaching our busy time, and so turnaround times are not negatively affected yet. We're still able to do things in the usual time, and I say the usual time, and that really translates into whatever time you need it in. So if you need it in 2 days, we can do that. If you need it in 4 days, we can do that.
Okay.
That kind of thing. And so we haven't really approached that time where we're stretched. Certainly at our company, I can't say the same for every other company, but do you see anything different, Derek or Chantel, with that, with your teams?
No, I mean, I grew my team in preparation for this market. So we have extra appraisers. So we are going to be able to handle the busy time.
Mm-hmm. Another suggestion I was going to say, Loren, is for our clients, just to do a bit of homework of the property value before you order the appraisal, know what you're kind of dealing with. We'll get some orders coming through and we're curious, where did this 3 million come from? Do a bit of homework before.
Yeah.
So we're not wasting anyone's time or money. If it has been actually renovated or not, a lot of the times the homeowner will say, oh, it's been completely renovated, but we go there and there's one coat of paint. So now we have to say, there wasn't much work done to the house, right? So kind of just familiarize yourself with like the house and what we're really dealing with, right?
Yeah. I especially on a refinance for us, it's always, where'd the number come from? Is this something that your client is expecting their house to be? Is it, did you provide some comparables in the neighborhood? Like, how did this number get achieved? So we have a bit of an idea. I know a lot of brokers that we deal with will use Purview, Terranet's Purview out in Ontario, which is a much different product than it is out west. And that's a really good indication for some of the brokers that have access to that to pull it. I mean, it's some networks, it's included in their monthly fee, so they can pull, so many a month. But when I was brokering, I used that all the time, especially if it was in a refi situation. I could pull it. To me, it gave me a little bit more information than property assessments would. And then I had an indication, hey, I could pick up the phone and, phone you, Derek, and say, hey, listen, I've got this. This is what sort of Purview is. This is where I'm sort of seeing it. And then again, yeah, okay, you're giving me the green light or no ain't going to come. And then I can go back to my client. So really typically, know that that property, like you mentioned, prior to submitting, save everybody a lot of hassle, right?
I think I should probably say that for our VIP clients, and VIP clients are those that sort of work with us exclusively, we offer something called the pre-estimate, which is where just like you're saying, Loren, you're working on a file for a couple of weeks and the owner's told you it's worth $1 million. You haven't really done any checking on that, but you spend 2 weeks of your time as a broker working on the file, putting it together, only to find out that the value is nowhere near $1 million. But had you spoken to the appraiser first, the appraiser could have told you that, well, it's been listed at 900 for the last year and a half. It's probably not going to come in at $1 million.
Yeah.
You save 2 weeks of your time. We would have talked ourselves out of an appraisal, but that's fine. We're in it for the long haul, the longer relationship, not just every last appraisal dollar.
100%.
You could just go to our website and go into pre-estimate, and then we're not going to give you an exact value of something's worth, but we can give you a ballpark.
Yeah.
We can give you an idea of whether you're even in the right range. And if it helps you, our goal here is to sort of save wasted time and money for brokers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, just what we were just talking about. Derek and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago on a file, and it made a big difference to the broker partners that we were dealing with that came to us, and we worked as a team to enlighten the client of where their property was going to kind of come in at, and is this going to work for what they needed. And, in the end, I don't recall the outcome, but it was one of those things, like, saved everybody a lot of time and effort for having the relationship that we have to be able to do that, and take a couple of minutes out of each of our days to kind of speed up a process or end a process, so nobody's wasting any more time, right? So changes, any changes that you see coming down the pipeline for appraiser firms or the industry as a whole across Canada coming into next year? Like, and where I'm coming from that, like in Ontario at the end of beginning of April, everybody that's wanted to deal with MIC or private lenders must have paying their level 2 licensing in order to be able to deal with the likes of ThreePoint and other of our colleagues out there. Are there any changes that the appraisers are going to have to deal with this year, or is it pretty well status kind of quo?
I can think of one that is on the horizon in BC. So the provincial government is now, in their new housing policy, has mandated that municipalities over 5,000 people are all going to have to adopt a new housing strategy that effectively upzones properties to a higher use, and so a higher density. Vancouver is one of the first municipalities to follow that, and so this summer is going to be when that comes into place. And so your typical house in Vancouver may have the ability to be upzoned to up to 6 strata units.
Oh, okay.
And so, that is going to be a massive problem for appraisers and appraisals and residential lending guidelines at financial institutions. And so while we can tell that it's a problem, I cannot tell you what the solution is yet until we get there. And so I think what the appraisers have sort of surmised is that we don't think that, like in the past, if you come across a property that has the ability to be upzoned or higher usage, that would drive the value of that property up. That may not happen in this case, where if every property now has the ability to be higher use, then all waters rise. And so it's not necessarily going to make one property stand out from the rest. So more to come on that, but that's what I see in BC and certainly Vancouver in the beginning. Derek, that's already happening in Okanagan a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate for the people that bought the fourplex zone lots because they paid an absolute premium up here. And unfortunately, that they're the people that are going to get really stung by this because they overpaid quite a bit. At the time, it seemed like it made sense, but because there's only so many to buy and listed. But now that, Lee is saying that, they can all be upzoned and, have higher density, that could be an issue for some of those buyers.
So I kind of wanted to, one of the last couple of things I want to talk about was sort of the hot button in especially this province with regards to Airbnb, VRBO, and what that's going to do to the market in this province. What's your take on that?
Well, I asked my realtor friends that, and they said that because of the strata regulations in Greater Vancouver that have been in place, and the rules certainly in Vancouver with respect to Airbnb, the negative effect of the provincial ruling has already happened. So that's already played out in this marketplace.
Okay.
So I don't think there's going to be much change there. Perhaps we're going to see more properties come on the market because of that. Like a lot of people are going, but a lot of the forces that you would expect to see when a ruling like this comes out have been sort of in the marketplace already now for a couple of years. Meaning
stratas have already said, in their strata bylaws, they don't allow short-term rentals. Yeah. If they allow rentals, it's going to be, 6-month, year type contracts, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that the effect is going to be sort of muted certainly in Greater Vancouver. What do you think, Derek and Okanagan?
Well, there's only a select few that allow short-term rentals here. So maybe the people that paid a bit of a premium, I noticed they were selling higher in certain developments up here for that reason, because you could generate quite a bit of revenue, especially in the summer months. But other than that, I mean, like you say, a lot of short-term rentals aren't allowed. So I don't think it'll really flood the market, but there's a lot of high rises coming up in the Okanagan in the next few years here. So I think the market could get flooded anyways.
And that's what I was about to say, whether or not, currently based on maybe location, municipality or whatever it may be, there may be some fluctuation to the market. But I think it's going to be more so those people that have bought on spec or, you know, pre-sale, wanting to put that into a portfolio of a company that they run with short-term rentals. I think we could probably maybe see more of an effect in that segment of the market.
Yeah, I think there could be a bit of too much supply coming on in the condo market up here in the next, we'll see how it goes, but I don't like the condo market's not a very strong market right now. I think the single family will be the hottest market coming up in the next, I'd say, you know, several months here. So, but I don't see the condo market appreciating too much in the next couple of years here in the Okanagan.
And how's that market been in say Edmonton, Chantal?
Airbnb or just condos?
Condos.
Condos in Edmonton. Okay, interesting, because a year ago, you could not give away a condo in Edmonton downtown. Prices had dropped significantly from 10 years previous. And now my Edmonton appraiser is saying those are starting to pick up. Starting 2024, condos in Edmonton, I'm assuming investors, I mean, they can do short-term rentals in a lot of those situations. So maybe where you guys aren't, they're not buying in BC, but maybe that's the plan for Edmonton to see how that market can recover over the year will be interesting for sure.
And in sort of north end too, we're seeing a lot of redevelopment or rehab buildings where people have gone in, bought, you know, an much older building, gone in, renovated, you know, these smaller units, and then turn around and put them on the market for what I would say in an extreme reasonable price tag, you know, at sub 200.
Well, you could get a condo last year for 50,000.
Yeah.
So put 30,000 into that and sell it for over 200. You're doing good.
Exactly. So to sort of wraps things up, you know, what's anything new coming down the pipeline for Lawrenson Walker expansion? I know we were kind of leaving a little bit of that because Chantal had a bit of an announcement to sort of make on that front, but anything else you guys want to share going on in Lawrenson Walker life, or your
Chantal, got some good news.
Okay. Yeah, so Lawrenson Walker, Alberta is opening up an office in Lethbridge. It's a market that our clients have been asking for another appraisal option. So we saw an opportunity there to enter that market. And I'm wondering if, similar to Edmonton, this market may be one that, you know, people that decide Calgary might not be affordable are going to move into these submarkets of Calgary. Lethbridge being a 2-hour drive from Calgary and its own city in itself. So
right.
As of April 1st, we'll be open and servicing that market. That's
awesome. I mean, Lethbridge is definitely an area that we've seen an uptick in inquiries on over the last couple of months, and an area that we do lend in and we do like. So that was awesome news when we were chatting last week about that. So I knew I wanted to kind of keep that a bit of announcement for this. And anything else going on in Lower Mainland or the Okanagan here?
Well, one of our newer offices we opened up in Kamloops. So summer of 2023, we opened up our services out to the Kamloops region now. So we've brought on a full-time local experienced appraiser there as well. Who's very experienced over there. So that's been going quite well, and it's been a pretty good market. So yeah, we're also available in Kamloops now too. So that's pretty good news for us.
And just a little blurb out to our broker partners out there. When it comes to locations and appraisal partners, like these fine folks here, wherever Lawrenson Walker's willing to go to, willing to accept their report. So we get a lot of times where, well, you know, can we use this person or that person if they're, you know, depending on where it is, it's like they're on our list. So wherever they're willing to go and inspect a property for you, we're willing to accept that report. So, but it's also nice to, you know, hear, hey, partners out there, we have expanded our services to these, and we do have boots on the ground, because that makes a big difference. It's not like you're having somebody from Calgary, you have to drive 2 hours, inspect properties and then drive back, and, client on the hook for, 4 hours plus travel time, right? So makes a big difference when we're talking that, and that's outstanding news, especially for both those areas, because both ones we lend a lot in. So, and then to wrap it up, one wish list that you personally want to do this year outside of work.
We haven't thought about anything but work since.
No.
Ask us next year what we're happy that we did this year.
Aha. Yes.
I have a personal goal to do some travel this year. To get out and enjoy some traveling with my kids, and focus on that a lot this year as well. But I think that's really my only personal goal for the next while, for sure.
If I'm able to find time, I'd like to tweak my golf game a little bit. It's kind of fallen off.
Well, we
bit,
could
need to
arrange
get
that.
out there, Loren.
We're not too far from one another, and in the
let's do it
same
again.
city. So I'll definitely put that on my list as far as what I'd like to do, get a little bit more than I did last year. And like you, Lee, we want to travel a little bit more. Our plans for next fall are to hit Italy for the first time, where my wife has some newfound family, and hopefully get back down to Texas. A lot of people know that I got family down there, and we enjoy spending some time. And so we haven't been down there for a bit. So that's sort of on our bucket list over the next 12 months and whatnot. So
looking forward to seeing your Italy pictures when they.
Yes. So are we. So, hey, well, let's wrap up this. This was, again, great information. Great always to sit down with you guys and chat about life and work and whatnot, and truly appreciate the partnership that we have with Lawrenson Walker and those of our mutual partners that select both of us to do business with. So it's we're lucky to have those relationships.
Thank you, Loren. We love doing
us.
it. Yeah.
You're most welcome, and stay tuned next year for another update on what both of us have gotten up to, and see what's in store for 2025. That's so hard to believe. That's the next number on the calendar. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And should you need an appraisal report out west here, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and reach out to the fine folks at Lawrenson Walker. They are, again, tremendous partners at ThreePoint, and we're glad to be working with them. So everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Lauren.